Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, an ultra-conservative with a history of atrocity accusations who was widely considered a potential future supreme leader of Iran, was confirmed dead Monday after a helicopter transporting him and several other government officials crashed in a rural area of the country due to fog and bad weather, state news agencies reported. A search for a missing helicopter carrying Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, the country's foreign minister and other officials lasted more than 12 hours before wreckage was found in the country's northwest region, near Iran's border with Azerbaijan, state news media reported. Raisi assumed the presidency in 2021 following an election that was widely protested over claims it was rigged in favor of the conservative, who was ultimately victorious with 62% of the votes cast. It was the lowest turnout for an Iranian election in 4 decades. Raisi was a political ally to Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader and most powerful political and religious authority in Iran, and the president had been largely seen as a likely successor to the position. While president, Raisi worked to expand Iran's influence in the Middle East while governing through a severe economic crisis and a historic escalation of the country's conflict with Israel, which recently put the countries on the brink of war. Enforcement of Iran's hijab and chastity law sharply increased under Raisi's administration. He faced massive anti-government protests around the deaths of Mahsa Amini and Armida Jaravand, both of whom died after allegedly violating the hijab law, and the countries has restricted women's rights to sexual and reproductive health care in attempts to raise the population. Raisi was sanctioned by the U.S. in 2019 after the Treasury Department accused him of participating in decades of human rights violations, including the execution of children in Iran, imprisonment of prominent human rights lawyers and executions of thousands of political prisoners in 1988. Ebrahim Raisi al-Saadati, commonly known as Ebrahim Raisi, was an Iranian politician who served as the 8th president of Iran from 2021 until his death in 2024. A principlist and a Muslim jurist, he became president after the 2021 election. Raisi began his clerical studies at age 15, but his exact qualification is disputed. Raisi served in several positions in Iran's judicial system, including as prosecutor of Karaj, prosecutor of Hamadan and deputy prosecutor and prosecutor of Tehran. Raisi was criticized for his role in the 1988 executions of Iranian political prisoners. United Nations special rapporteurs and other organizations accused him of crimes against humanity. The U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctioned him after Iran shot down an American drone in 2019. He was later Deputy Chief Justice, 2004 to 2014, Attorney General, 2014 to 2016, and Chief Justice, 2019 to 2021. He was custodian and chairman of Istanquds Razavi, a Boniad, from 2016 until 2019. He was a member of Assembly of Experts from South Khorasan Province, being elected for the first time in the 2006 election. He was the son-in-law of Mashhad Friday prayer leader and Grand Imam of Imam Reza Shrine, Ahmed Alam al-Hoda. Raisi ran for president in 2017 as the candidate of the Conservative Popular Front of Islamic Revolution Forces, losing to moderate incumbent President Hassan Rouhani, 57% to 38%. Raisi successfully ran for president a second time in 2021 with 63% of the votes, succeeding Rouhani. According to many observers, the 2021 Iranian presidential election was rigged in favor of Raisi, who was considered an ally of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Considered a hardliner in Iranian politics, Raisi's presidency saw deadlock in negotiations with the U.S. over the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, and large-scale protests throughout the country in late 2022, triggered by the death of Mahsa Amini on September 16. During Raisi's term, Iran intensified uranium enrichment, hindered international inspections, and supported Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. Iran also launched a missile and drone attack on Israel during the Gaza conflict and continued arming proxy groups like Hezbollah and the Houthi movement. Often seen as a front-runner to succeed Khomeini as supreme leader, Raisi died in 2024 following a helicopter crash near Varzakan. Ebrahim Raisi was born on December 14, 1960 to a clerical family in the Nagan district of Mashhad. His father, Syed Haji, died when he was 5. Raisi was a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, Sayyid, through the line of Hussein ibn Ali, and also connected to the line of Ali ibn Hussein Zain al-Abidin. Raisi passed his primary education in Javadiya school, then started studying in the Hawza, Islamic seminary. In 1975, he went to Ayatollah Burujurdi School in order to continue his education in Qom Seminary. He has claimed to have received a doctorate degree in private law from Motahari University, however, this has been disputed. Raisi began his studies at the Qom Seminary at the age of 15. He then decided to study in the Nawab School for a short time. After that, he went to Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Musavi Nezid School, where he studied while also teaching other students. In 1976, he went to Qom to continue his studies at the Ayatollah Burujurdi School. He was a student of Said Hossein Burujurdi, Mortaza Motahari, Abul Qasim Hazali, Hossein Nuri Hamdani, Ali Meshkini, and Mortaza Pasandide. 1819 Raisi also passed his Courage Fiqh, external fiqh, to Said Ali Khomeini and Mojtaba Tehrani. 20 According to Alex Vatanksa of the Middle East Institute, Raisi's exact religious qualification is a sore point. For a while prior to investigation by the Iranian media, he referred to himself as Ayatollah on his personal website. However, according to Vatanksa, the media publicized his lack of formal religious education and credentials, after which Raisi ceased claiming to hold the aforementioned rank. After this investigation and criticism he referred to himself as Hojato el-Islam, a clerical rank immediately beneath that of Ayatollah. Raisi subsequently again declared himself an Ayatollah shortly before the 2021 presidential election. The decree by Supreme Leader Ali Khomeini appointing him as president, refers to him as a Hojato el-Islam. In 1981, he was appointed the prosecutor of Karaj. Later on, he was also appointed prosecutor of Hamadan and served both positions together. He was simultaneously active in two cities more than 300 kilometers away from each other. After 4 months, he was appointed prosecutor of Hamadan province. He was appointed deputy prosecutor of Tehran in 1985 and moved to the capital. After 3 years and in early 1988, he was placed in the attention of Ruhollah Khomeini and received special provisions, independent from judiciary, from him to address legal issues in some provinces like Lorestan, Semnan, and Kermanshah. Hussein Ali Montazeri named Raisi as one of the 4 persons involved in the 1988 executions of Iranian political prisoners. Other persons were Mortaza Eshraki, prosecutor of Tehran, Hossein Ali Nayari, judge, and Mustafa Pour Mohammadi, Moy representative in Evan. Names of first 2 persons are mentioned in Khomeini's order. Pour Mohammadi has denied his role, but Raisi did not comment publicly on the matter. Due to the involvement of this prosecution committee in thousands of executions, it has been informally called the Death Committee. His role earned Raisi the reputation of being a hanging judge and the nickname Butcher of Tehran. The 1988 executions of Iranian political prisoners were a series of state-sponsored executions of political prisoners across Iran, starting on July 19, 1988 and lasting for approximately 5 months. The majority of those killed were supporters of the People's Mujahideen of Iran, although supporters of other leftist factions, including the Fadayan and the Today Party of Iran, Communist Party, were executed as well. According to Amnesty International, thousands of political dissidents were systematically subjected to enforced disappearance in Iranian detention facilities across the country and extrajudicially executed pursuant to an order issued by the Supreme Leader of Iran and implemented across prisons in the country. Many of those killed during this time were subjected to torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment in the process. The killings have been described as a political purge without precedent in modern Iranian history, both in terms of scope and cover-up. However, the exact number of prisoners executed remains a point of contention. Amnesty International, After interviewing dozens of relatives, puts the number in thousands, and then Supreme Leader Ruhollah Khomeini's deputy, Hussein Ali Montazeri, put the number between 2,800 and 3,800 in his memoirs, but an alternative estimation suggests that the number exceeded 30,000. Because of the large number, prisoners were loaded into forklift trucks in groups of 6 and hanged from cranes in half-hour intervals. Amnesty describes the state's refusal to provide families with the location of the mass graves of their loved ones as ongoing crimes against humanity. After Khomeini's death and election of Ali Khomeini as the new supreme leader, Raisi was appointed Tehran prosecutor by newly appointed Chief Justice Mohammad Yazdi. He held the office for 5 years from 1989 to 1994. In 1994, he was appointed head of General Inspection Office. From 2004 until 2014, Raisi served as first Deputy Chief Justice of Iran, being appointed by Chief Justice Mahmoud Hashemi Shahroudi. He kept his position in Sadek Larijani's first term as Chief Justice. He was later appointed Attorney General of Iran in 2014, a position that he held until 2016, when he resigned to become chairman of Istan Quds Razavi. He was also served as Special Clerical Court Prosecutor by the order of the Supreme Leader, Sayyid Ali Khomeini from 2012 to 2021. Raisi was a member of the Board of Trustees of Execution of Imam Khomeini's order for 10 years by order of Sayyid Ali Khomeini. He was also a member of the Supreme Selection Board. He was the founder of Fatma al-Zahra Seminary, in Tehran, and the first secretary of the headquarters for reviving the enjoining good and forbidding wrong in the country. He was appointed the prosecutor of Hamdan province, and was active there for 3 years since 1982 to 1984. His other executive and oversight responsibilities include the positions such as membership in the Supreme Council of Cyberspace, the Monetary and Credit Council, and the Anti-Corruption Headquarters. He became chairman of Istan Quds Razavi on March 7, 2016 after the death of his predecessor Abbas Viz Tabasai, a position which he stayed in until 2019. He was the second person to serve this office from 1979. Supreme Leader Ali Khomeini enumerated serving the pilgrims of the Holy Shrine, especially poor people, and also serve nearby, especially the poor and dispossessed, as 2 important responsibilities of Raisi in his appointment order. Raisi was named as one of the Popular Front of Islamic Revolution Forces, JAMNA's presidential candidates in February 2017. His candidacy was also supported by the Front of Islamic Revolution Stability. He officially announced his nomination in a statement published on April 6, and called it his religious and revolutionary responsibility to run, citing the need for a fundamental change in the executive management of the country and a government that fights poverty and corruption. He registered on April 14, 2017 at Ministry of Interior with saying it's time to perform citizenship rights, not only writing act. On May 15, 2017, conservative candidate Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf withdrew his candidacy in favor of Raisi. It was speculated that Ghalibaf would be Raisi's first vice president if he was elected. They also joined in a campaign rally in Tehran with each other. After election results were announced, Raisi received 15,786,449 out of 42,382,390, 38.3% of the votes. He lost to incumbent President Rouhani and ranked second. He did not congratulate Rouhani on his re-election as the president, and asked the Guardian Council to look into violations of the law before and during the elections, with 100 pages of attached documentation. In 2021, Raisi ran again for the presidency and won the election. The election had a 48.8% turnout, and 63% went to Raisi. Out of 28.9 million votes, around 3.7 million votes were not counted, likely because they were blank or otherwise invalid protest votes. According to many observers, the 2021 Iranian presidential election was rigged in favor of Raisi. Almost 600 candidates, 40 of which were female, registered in the election, of which 7 men were approved a month before the election by the 12 jurists and theologians on the Guardian Council, an unelected body that has the final decision on candidate validity based on the strength of the candidate's qualifications. 3 of those 7 candidates were subsequently pulled out before polling day. Before he withdrew, reformist candidate Mohsen Miralizadeh hinted that the vote would be a foregone conclusion, saying during a candidate's TV debate that the ruling clerics had aligned sun, moon, and the heavens to make one particular person the president, according to The Economist. Former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, among those barred from running, said in a video message that he would not vote, declaring, "I do not want to have a part in this sin." Raisi was appointed the president of Iran on August 3, 2021, through a decree issued by the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. During his inauguration speech, Raisi stated that his government would seek to lift the sanctions on Iran imposed by the United States, but added that it would not let foreigners dictate how its economy is run. He was sworn in before the Islamic Consultative Assembly on August 5 during a ceremony attended by around 260 officials, both from Iran and other countries. In his speech, he stated that Iran was actually responsible for stabilizing the Middle East, that he would resist foreign pressure on Iran but widen its external relations, especially with Iran's neighbors, promised to support any diplomatic move to lift the American sanctions and assured that Iran's nuclear program was only meant for peaceful purposes. He also promised that he would try to improve the quality of life for Iranians and defend human rights. Raisi appointed Muhammad Mukhbar, the head of the execution of Imam Khomeini's Order Foundation, as the first vice president of Iran on August 8. Gholam Hossein Esmaili, a former spokesman for the judiciary, was also appointed Raisi's chief of staff. On August 11, Raisi appointed former Minister of Petroleum and Minister of Commerce Masoud Mir Kazemi as a vice president and head of the Plan and Budget Organization. He also presented nominations for his cabinet before the Islamic Consultative Assembly on the same day. Raisi's nomination of Ahmed Vahidi as Minister of Interior among his cabinet nominations was quickly strongly condemned by both Argentina and Israel, with the former having requested his arrest through a red notice of Interpol for his alleged involvement in the 1994 AMIA bombing in Buenos Aires. The Argentine Foreign Ministry stated that Vahidi's designation was an affront to the Argentine justice and the victims of the terrorist attack. On August 20, Raisi appointed former Minister of Culture Mohammad Hosseini as Vice President for Parliamentary Affairs. 18 out of 19 of his cabinet picks were approved by the Islamic Consultative Assembly on August 25, except Hossein Bagholi, whom Raisi had chosen as the Minister of Education. Many of the ministerial choices are sanctioned by the United States and several are veterans of the Islamic Republic of Iran Armed Forces. Raisi meanwhile appointed former IRGC Commander-in-Chief Mohsen Raisi as the Vice President for Economic Affairs on August 25. He also appointed him as the Secretary of the Supreme Council for Economic Coordination, as well as the Secretary of the Iranian government's Economic Committee. On August 26, Iran had a renewed diplomatic clash with Argentina, when the latter condemned the appointment of Raisi. Raisi is also wanted by Argentina for alleged involvement in the AMIA bombing. Argentina energetically condemned his designation and added that Iran must cooperate with the investigation and added again that Raisi's designation was another affront to the Argentine justice. On September 1, Raisi appointed former president of Al-Azhar University Ensi Hazali as Vice President for Women and Family Affairs and Mohammad Degan as Vice President for Legal Affairs. On September 4, he stated that Iran would resume talks over its nuclear program, which have been stalled since his election victory, but not under pressure from Western countries. On September 5, Raisi appointed Maysam Latifi, former Dean of Islamic Education and Management at Imam Sadiq University, as a Vice President and head of the Administrative and Recruitment Affairs Organization, while Saulat Mortazavi was appointed Vice President for Executive Affairs and head of the Presidential Administration. In addition, former head of Management and Planning Organization Farhad Rabar was appointed the President's Assistant for Economic Affairs. Amir Hossein Ghazizadeh Hashimi was appointed a vice president and the head of the Foundation of Martyrs and Veterans Affairs on September 12. Importation of COVID-19 vaccine meanwhile surged since Raisi took office, with over 30 million doses being imported during the Iranian month of Shahrivar, more than the vaccine imports since February 2021, while 13.4 million were imported during the month of Mordad in which Raisi was sworn in. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced importation of 60 million more vaccines on September 19. 97 in a pre-recorded speech before the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly on September 21, Raisi stated that Iran wanted to resume talks over its nuclear program. He also stated that the hegemony of the United States was being rejected across the world and criticized its sanctions on Iran as unjust. On September 17, protests erupted after the death of Mahsa Amini, and unrest spread all over the country. President Raisi promised to set up a commission to investigate the murder, but this did not affect the protests, as law enforcement agencies are allegedly retreating from small cities due to uncontrollable rioting. After the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, Raisi stated on August 16 that the withdrawal of American forces from Afghanistan offered a chance for stabilizing the country, which Iran would support. He also called on all parties to form an inclusive government. On September 4, he urged that elections be held to elect a new Afghan government as soon as possible. On September 18, he stated that Iran will not allow establishment of any terrorist group, including the Islamic State, along its border with Afghanistan and use it for attacks on other nations. In addition, he called on Taliban to form an inclusive government. In April 2022, Raisi warned that Israel will be targeted by his country's armed forces if it makes the slightest move against Iran. During an interview in September of that year, he denounced the Abraham Accords and called Israel a false regime. Raisi has threatened major Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, and stated that the only solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the establishment of a Palestinian state from the river to the sea. Raisi said that his government's priority in the meeting with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was to strengthen strategic ties between Iran and Syria. He criticized the Saudi-led blockade of Yemen and called for a ceasefire. In March 2022, according to Foreign Policy, Raisi pledged alliance in favor of Russia when the Russian invasion of Ukraine started. Negotiations with the U.S. over the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, have continued to be stalled under Raisi, with him accusing the Americans of delaying and dragging their feet. Between 14 to 17 February 2023, Raisi visited China and met Chinese leader Xi Jinping. During the meeting, the two countries signed 20 cooperation agreements and agreed to boost relations. Following the talks, Saudi Arabia and Iran agreed to restore diplomatic ties cut in 2016 on March 10 after a deal brokered between the two countries by China following secret talks in Beijing. Raisi praised Hamas' October 7 attacks on Israel, stating that these actions will lead to the demise of Israel. He condemned Israel's actions in the Gaza Strip during the Israel-Hamas war and accused Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza with the support of the United States and certain European countries. In January 2024, he predicted that the Israel-Hamas war would result in Israel's destruction. Raisi cancelled a trip to Geneva in December 2023 due to accusations against him regarding his role in the torture and murder of prisoners in 1988, for which he could face arrest. Raisi was widely considered to be a hardliner in Iranian politics. He strongly supported sex segregation. He said in a 2014 interview about a planned segregation in Tehran municipality that "I think this is a good move because the majority of women do a better job in a totally relaxed atmosphere and fit are required." He was a supporter of Islamization of universities, revision of the internet and censorship of Western culture. Raisi claimed that economic sanctions were an opportunity. Raisi said, "We will have guidance patrols, but for managers." He also said, "If the government does well, the people will do well." He stated that the amputation of thieves' hands which is based on a very strict interpretation of Sharia, is one of our honors, and that such punishments will not be limited to now and will be continued in the future. He stated that he should be honored and esteemed for his role in the 1988 Iranian mass executions of political prisoners. Raisi was one of 9 Iranian officials listed in November 2019 subjected to sanctions by the United States Department of State due to alleged human rights abuses. He was sanctioned by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control in accordance with Executive Order 13876. He was accused of crimes against humanity by international human rights organizations and United Nations special rapporteurs. A formal request had been made to arrest Raisi for crimes against humanity, if he attended the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Scotland. Raisi with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the 15th BRICS Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, August 24, 2023. In 2017, Raisi reported, "I see the activation of a resistance economy as the only way to end poverty and deprivation in the country." He supports development of the agricultural sector over commercial retail, which will eventually benefit foreign brands. In 2017, he promised to triple the monthly state benefits, currently RLS 0.450000 per citizen, in order to tackle corruption and create 6 million jobs. He said, about sanctions against Iran, sanctions should be seen as an opportunity for economic empowerment, and we should strengthen ourselves instead of falling short. Raisi said in regards to the issue of lifting sanctions, every government that takes office, to be elected, should lift the oppressive sanctions, and it must be pursued seriously, and the neutralization of sanctions should be on the agenda, and we should not condition the economy, neither the corona nor the flood nor the sanctions should have an impact. In state-led media, Raisi said that no one has the right to violate the freedom and rights of girls and women, and it is incomplete to talk about culture and economy without the role of women. He emphasized that women's rights are God-given, and the government should not only not lose this right, but it should also create the conditions for it to flourish, and in many spaces, women's role-playing is empty and women's talent, creativity, initiative, and innovation can be used a lot. Despite these comments, Raisi signed orders creating stricter hijab restrictions for women in Iran. Raisi stated, "The intellectual of the society understands before the others and watches the threats of the society, and soon warns the society with his poetry and art and saves the society from falling asleep, like a muezzin." According to him, supporting the people of culture and art should not be verbal and should lead to action. He said, "Teachers are the true intellectuals of society and must observe and warn of harm. Teachers are the identifiers and civilizers of society." Raisi has made discriminatory remarks about homosexuality, calling same-sex relations savagery. The Center for Human Rights in Iran asserts that this type of rhetoric exacerbates prejudice and violence against LGBTQ+ individuals in the country. When visiting Uganda, after the country had recently passed a law instituting the death penalty for homosexuality, Raisi stated, "I believe that this issue, and these strong attacks by the West against the establishment of families and against the culture of the nations, is another area of cooperation for Iran and Uganda," further adding, "The Western countries try to identify homosexuality as an index of civilization, while this is one of the dirtiest things which have been done in human history." Like other Iranian leaders, Raisi publicly cast doubt on the historical authenticity of the Holocaust. After being asked on CBS's 60 Minutes if he believed the Holocaust happened, Raisi stated, "There are some signs that it happened. If so, they should allow it to be investigated and researched." This statement was widely condemned as Holocaust denial. Raisi had been described as a favorite and possible successor to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, by several sources. In 2019, Syed Golkar of Al Jazeera called Raisi the most likely successor of Ayatollah Ali Khomeini as supreme leader of Iran. In 2020, Dexter Filkins described him as frequently mentioned as a successor to Khomeini. In 2024, Time magazine reported that both Ebrahim Raisi and Mojtaba Khomeini, Khomeini's son, were front-runners for the position. Raisi's death in a helicopter crash in May 2024 cut short his potential candidacy. Raisi with Ilham Aliyev at the border with Azerbaijan, hours before his death. On May 19, 2024, Raisi, Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, and several other officials were killed when Raisi's helicopter crashed near the village of Uzi in East Azerbaijan province. Iran's semi-official news agency, Mehr News, described them as having been martyred in the crash. Raisi is the second president of Iran to have died in office, following Mohammad Ali Rajeh, who died in a 1981 bombing. Raisi's death received mixed reactions among the public in Iran, with some mourning and others celebrating. Raisi was married to Jamali Alam al-Hoda, daughter of Mashhad Friday Prayers Imam, Ahmed Alam al-Hoda. She is an associate professor at Tehran's Shahid Beheshti University and president of the university's Institute of Fundamental Studies of Science and Technology. They had 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren. One of their daughters studied at Sharif University and the other at Tehran University. Thank you for watching this video.